we had some frustrations about Walz's lack of aggressiveness with J.D. Vance. Vance, for his part, was trying to appeal to the same kind of more moderate voters, right? And they both were very non-adversarial, congenial with one another, giving each other credit and things like that.
Both acting like they wanted to decommodify housing, which would be quite a step. And
the problem with this strategy, right? And largely, it ended up, I think, going fine. It's more of a draw for the Democratic ticket.
And the stakes were never really that high.
The stakes were never that high. That's the thing. Is the vice presidential debate really historically has no bearing on the outcome of the election. But why this is perceived as more of a draw than a win for Walz, in part, or a win for Vance, I guess. Wait, I got mixed up in what I was talking about. Gosh, I'm tired. Hold on one sec. Wait, what was I saying? Damn,
you're saying something. Why this is why in the after sort of the heat of last night, it looks like it was a closer result for Walz, and that Vance didn't run away with it.
Yes. Okay. Let me start over. So basically, last night we had some criticisms about Walz not being as aggressive with J.D. Vance, and that's in part because we want to have Vance be called out for being a far right extremist. But Vance has historically horrible favorability with the American public for a vice presidential ticket. So he had a lot more to lose if he was going to be attacked in this situation. For them to have identical really strategies in this area, Walz and Vance just trying to be nice to one another. I wish Walz was more aggressive because Vance desperately needed to raise his favorables, which he ended up doing. Walz did as well, but you could have limited his ceiling by being more aggressive on this front. But with that said, this is a reaction here from CNN. They basically did an instant reaction from debate watchers about the favorability. And you'll see here that both Walz and Vance increased their favorability with voters.
Right now, we want to get some more results from our instant poll of debate watchers. CNN political director David Chalian is back with us. David, give us the latest numbers.
Well, one of the things that we talked about going into the debate is, were they going to try to enhance their favorable numbers, or were they going to just try to bring up the negatives of their opponents, right? That was one of the things we were watching for. Take a look here. We asked people whether they have a favorable view of the candidate or not. Before the debate, Walz was at a plus 14. So if you take his favorable minus his unfavorable, he was at a positive 14. After the debate, he's at plus 37. And look at Vance. He did a ton of progress on his favorable ratings. We know he's been one of the most unpopular vice presidential picks out of the gate. But look at the good he did himself here. He went from a minus 22 favorable rating before the debate with this group of debate watchers to a minus 3. We also asked for each one, is this person qualified to serve as president if necessary? So Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, before the debate, 62% said yes. After the debate, 65% said yes. So a slight improvement on that sort of commander-in-chief score. Same question about Vance. Is he qualified to serve as president if necessary? Look at the good he did here. Only 50% of debate watchers said yes before the debate. That went up to 58% after the debate. Not as high as the Walz numbers. But again, this group of debate watchers is about 5 percentage points more Democratic overall than an overall registered voter population would be.
Well, so it's interesting. So it's just basically.
So that's a good caveat to note at the end there. And that is in keeping with what we're saying, of it being basically a draw, because if they both increase their net favorability, that's a net 23-point increase for Walz, quick math, and net 19 for Vance, but the polling group trends a little bit more Democratic than traditional independent voters. That shows that basically, okay, this was something that is a draw, not probably going to have a major impact on the election, but the point is just that, like, the threat of what Donald Trump poses here is, especially given his rhetoric about, like, essentially pogroms against migrants and his undemocratic tendencies, it should not be difficult to be more aggressive and demonize them on that front and be more explicitly partisan, just to drive up the numbers in terms of who you're going to be turning out. They're both seemingly focused on a very, very specific group of moderate voters in these swing states. And that's who these debates have been for. That's why Kamala Harris was acting all tough on crime in part. I mean, touting her prosecutorial record on the debate stage, and wasn't talking about things like price gouging or her housing policy that she was in the pre-convention strategy. The post-convention strategy has been geared towards moderate Republicans, and it shows. Now, on the substance, I don't like that at all. Will it have an outcome where they win, which is all they really care about at this point? It remains to be seen, and the polling still is pretty steady for Kamala Harris, but it's closer than it should be, given what is on the other side of things.
I think if they both came out with their favorabilities down, that would have been a win for Walz. And that they both exited with favorability up, it's a win for Vance. Because the core thing you're saying about Trump is that we can't do this. He's so bad. This administration's horrible. It's not that, oh, there's actually a lot of agreement here.
Walz struggles to be combative, and I think, but it was also campaign strategy hampering him that I just laid out. That the post-convention strategy has been one geared towards those very voters, and I think that's why there's been a bit of air being let out of the balloon here, or maybe that's not the right phrase. The enthusiasm has kind of it's been deflating to a certain degree. But at the end of the day, let's pull up this Politico article. They did their snap poll of voters over who won the vice presidential debate, and independents seem to be more favorable towards Walz. So there's some positives here, even if our reaction isn't necessarily as positive. So you can see that Tim, that not the graph. I just want to go to this part. Walz had a commanding advantage with independents, 58% of whom sided with the Minnesota governor, while 42% gave Vance the edge. And then if we could scroll down to the other demographics, the next paragraph. Walz's strongest ratings came from younger people, particularly those aged 25 to 34, those with college degrees, and Black and Latino respondents, all key components to the Democratic coalition that powered President Joe Biden's victory over Donald Trump in 2020. Vance, meanwhile, performed best with people over the age of 55, white voters, and those without a college degree. That's the Trump coalition. In part, you're also seeing that in Pennsylvania, there was an AARP poll that came out yesterday that showed that while Harris has gained significantly with younger voters in between 18 and 45, over the past, since Biden dropped out, since the last Biden poll with them, Biden was, I have this here. The AARP survey, which is considered a bit more conservative than other pollsters, has Harris up 2% in Pennsylvania with likely voters. Biden was down by 5 in the same survey in April, and Biden was also behind with voters 18 to 49 in that April survey, and she's up 14. But she has lost ground with older voters versus Biden. So she's down 7 with older voters, with 65 plus in Pennsylvania, while Biden was down just by 1 point. So the point is that, like, when you're reading in between the lines about who they're targeting, they're trying to target older voters who are maybe more moderate, are put off by Donald Trump's uncouthness and January 6th being an indicator of extremism. I think that's a strong point, and they immediately cut an ad on that front. But that's who they're targeting with this campaign. That's why this next month is going to be a frustrating display of centrist politics to a degree. And it remains to be seen if that's sincere, and which parts are sincere, and which parts in the plan that are being de-emphasized in public but are strong in public.
Like
private, but
like what's always been true of elections is that the people that you really need to activate are the ones that aren't true independents but are low propensity partisans, and the Republicans are doing that. The Democrats are not. They're going for the contrary to what, and maybe this isn't as clear of a signal in the literature. Maybe some of our election followers, John from San Antonio, but That's been my impression. And so this seems like something that your donors tell you to do because you're not building a coalition that is going to upset their priorities more. And I think what's happening is there's mobilization that's being kept on the shelf because it's inconvenient. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope their internals are better than, say, the Hillary Clintons were. And they're not just actually telling themselves what they want to hear ahead of a loss.
Yeah, I mean, my assessment of this is different than my feelings on the Hillary Clinton campaign, where I thought that she was pretty likely to lose based on the way the campaign was run. And I don't have that same assessment here. I do think that there are some warning signs, but the polling is trending in one particular direction, and she has multiple paths to victory where Trump's are much more limited. So again, it's cynical. It's about targeting these specific voters in this specific way. But David Dayen had a great write-up of her manufacturing speech, where she emphasizes these like pro-business things, but the actual document is more of a continuation of the Biden manufacturing policy, which was more pro-labor and better for the economy in a more progressive direction. So I think it's very targeted who they're trying to appeal to. Now, I think you can do things on multiple fronts, though. If you want to have her speak to the business community in that sense, and then you also want to say things like, hey, why are they... Walz mentioned it last night, but housing policy should be more forward-facing because you can talk about the overpriced rent and the overpriced cost of housing, and not just like single home ownership, but also rent more broadly. That was the focus in the pre-convention strategy. There has been a significant break from that enthusiasm. And that the fact that we're feeling that makes total sense because the pre-convention strategy is for the base. And the post-convention strategy has been for these moderate voters. I don't love it, and I think they could do multiple things at once. But their feeling is that this is a very unique situation. They have a limited time frame to make their case, and they're worried about those particular voters in that instance. So it remains to be seen.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.